The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Great crowds were traveling with Jesus, and he turned and addressed them. If anyone comes to me without hating his father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. Which of you wishing to construct a tower does not first sit down and calculate the cost to see if there is enough for its completion? Otherwise, after laying the foundation and finding himself unable to finish the work, the onlooker should laugh at him and say, "This one began to build but did not have the resources to finish." Or what king marching into battle would not first sit down and decide whether with 10,000 troops he can successfully oppose another king advancing upon him with 20,000 troops? But if not, while he is still far away, he will send a delegation to ask for peace terms. In the same way, any one of you who does not renounce all his possessions cannot be my disciple. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Yesterday I had my great nephew's birthday that I went up in the suburbs with my sister, and as usual I think he just turned 10. I should remember, I'm great uncle. I think he just turned 10 years old or something like that, and he's growing up and all that. And I was watching my great nephews and nieces play, and all that, and they got into something, and the theme, my niece, the mom, is always into these theme parties. So yesterday we had a lot of fun. It was a Nerf gun party. So we all had Nerf guns to shoot at one another, going back and forth and all that stuff, which was nice. But one thing that happened, and I noticed that before, is you ever notice with people or even ourselves, when we don't get what we want, we say, "I hate you." And when you're growing up, I remember, "Mom, can I have an extra dessert?" "No. Oh, I hate you," and you run away and you got all these crying and stuff. Now, when we sit and reflect about it, and the person that hears it or the person that says it, they may really feel upset. They may be really angry, but they very rarely, if it's somebody they really care about and love, really the hate doesn't go all that far, because what happens is we don't get what we want, and then we're kind of stuck in the face with how do we reorder our priorities? Because that's what happens when we feel hate, or when we tell somebody something went a way we didn't think it was going to be. I had my whole life programmed and planned about this, and something didn't happen the way I wanted it, and that's the first response. Jesus used that technique a little bit. A hyperbole is what it's called, when he spoke in the gospel today about hating mom and dad and your family in order to be a disciple. And now, of course, that's not what the Lord wants us to do. But that was a thing that he used to kind of push, and we're in the parts of the Gospels where he's calling his disciples to really see the cost of discipleship, that there is an ordering to our lives when we follow the Lord, that even our love for mom and dad and aunts and uncles and friends should be seen through that optic, through how we serve the Lord, how we're called by the Lord to live. And I was reading one commentary about this gospel, and the commentator proposed this thing, which I kind of read before, but I had forgot about it. They say, Joseph, Jesus' father, is always known the carpenter. Really, they say he probably wasn't a carpenter in what we would consider being a carpenter. He was probably a laborer who had a lot of talents in construction. So he probably was part of a group that they would construct homes, and they do a lot more than carpentry. For those who are when I have some friends that are in the construction industry, you got to know how to pour concrete, you got to know how to do woodwork, you got to know how to do a bunch of other stuff. So one of the examples that Jesus uses today in the three things is, the guy that's building the house has to sit down and take a look at Do I have enough resources to build this house? Otherwise, people are going to think I'm foolish going through this. So he probably learned that from his dad. That there are things that are necessary in order to build something, and he's linking that to being part of his disciples, to be a follower of his. You got to understand what is entailed in this. From building the foundation to getting the finished product. And then, as we all know, we probably all have, those famous commercials on TV. Hey, do you know any contractor? Oh yeah, well, get me 3 quotes and get me the background checks and all this stuff. We have repairs that go on after we build the thing. And after the thing is done, that we need to always be attentive to what is there. And then all of us, as we're getting older, I know whenever I had to move, the third thing Jesus talks about was possessions, that there was something in there that when we kind of have more, we want more, and that kind of burns us down. I remember when we moved, my mom, I thought she was going to kill us before she died, okay? She had a flood in her basement, and myself and my sisters went downstairs, and we saw how everything was damaged. And without her coming down, because she couldn't walk, we made an executive family decision. So we said, if we're going to get yelled at, it's going to be together. Not one of us is going to say, well, I made the decision. And we because it was water damaged, we threw out a lot of our games when we were growing up, like, all the old board games and stuff. We probably threw away a lot of good stuff that could have had money if it wasn't wet. Well, then when she moved, as moms would do, where's this? I had that down here in this part. She remembered. God, were we shocked? She actually remembered all the stuff that she had. And then there was a little thing, but the point of it is being that, well, sometimes things weigh us down, and the Lord asks us to give them up in order to serve Him. And if we want to kind of think about what the gospel is calling us to do today, it's kind of like if we were going to continually construct our relationship with the Lord, what would be the budget we would have, or the things that we would need? One we would have to see, we have to have the end in mind. God is our focus, and how do we respect God in my life? How do I respect God in the lives of the people I live with, and my friends and my family? How do I respond to that presence of the Lord in God's life? And the second thing would be so keep the focus on God. And then I have to really then look and say, well, how do I order those relationships that I have? How is the Lord asking me to be able to live my life in good relationships with everybody? And probably what's not mentioned in the gospel, but we know the Lord invites us to do. How do we have those right relationships with people that get us angry or that we don't like? Or maybe one of those things when somebody in our family says, I really hate you, and they really are still carrying that hate, or we're carrying it for them. How do we begin to reorganize and reorder that stuff to build that God is the center, and I respect God in that? And then, as always, when Christ asked us to pick up the cross, that's the leaving go of our possessions. What does it mean to be people that sacrifice for the good of all, for the good of Christ in the world? That we are able to know that the Lord, when we make a sacrifice, not just because sacrifice is sacrifice, no. When we let stuff go, it's because we want to get to something deeper, which is the presence of the Lord in our midst. And then when we live like the Lord invites us to do, the house we construct is a house not only in our personal lives, but in the world that says, the Lord resides here. Come, be welcome, and let's enjoy the Lord's presence together.